Over the past few months, there's a good chance that you've seen or heard about Embold Credit Union, which is the new credit union that moved into the office building on Butcher Street close to Fred Meyer. Now, typically, I avoid doing interviews with businesses on this podcast because I really like the focus to be primarily on nonprofits or individuals who have really impacted Newberg in a positive way. But at the same time, the goal of the Giving Town podcast is to share stories of hope and generosity, and that's exactly what Embold is all about. Ever since they moved in, they have been finding ways to get involved and support Newberg. So today, I'm joined by Aaron Goff, who is the CEO of Embold Credit Union. He'll be sharing about Embold's background, the difference between credit unions and banks, why Embold places such a strong emphasis on community investment, and the importance of business involvement in local communities in general. After that, we'll discuss what Embold Credit Union hopes to accomplish by being in Newberg. Hi, I'm Daniel Roberts, host of the Giving Town podcast, where we share stories about the people and organizations that make Newberg so great. This podcast is brought to you by my real estate team, the Joyful Roberts Group, and we love serving this town and our amazing clients. We would be happy to serve you with buying or selling a home anywhere around the Newberg area. And if you're interested, you can learn more about us at thejoyfulrobertsgroup.com. And we also have the Living in Newberg YouTube channel, which has a ton of great information about Newberg. Well, thanks for tuning in to this episode, and I hope you enjoy this conversation with Aaron Goff about Embold Credit Union. Well, Aaron, thank you for joining me today on the Giving Town podcast. I'm looking forward to sharing with our community about Embold Credit Union. And you guys have only been here for, it feels like a few months. I'm sure it's been a little bit longer now. But a lot of people have probably seen the name, have heard of it, but maybe aren't familiar with who Embold is or why that matters. So can you share a little bit about Embold and the background, and then we'll kind of get into why we're doing this interview in the first place?
Yes. Well, thank you for having me, first of all. Embold is not a new organization. We've been around for about 65 years, but we were known for much of that time as Clackamas Federal Credit Union. So not long before we came to Newberg, we changed the name of the organization. So to make it extra confusing for everyone, we did a lot of things at once there. So if folks have heard of Clackamas Federal, that's still us, same folks. There was no merger. There was no change of hands. It's the same old local credit union we've been for 65 plus years at this point.
And was that name change partly due to expanding outside of Clackamas County?
It was. For most of our life as an organization, we only served folks in Clackamas County. And about 3 years ago, we expanded what's called a field of membership in credit unions. So now we can serve the 6 counties in the metro area, including Yamhill County. So at that time, it seemed to make sense to get away from the name Clackamas Federal, because that kind of gave the misnomer that you had to live in Clackamas still to join the credit union.
Okay. So I typically avoid doing interviews with businesses, and I know we can get to what it means that credit unions are actually not for profit. But every once in a while I make exceptions, and most of the focus is on nonprofits and people in the community who have really made significant impacts. But at the same time, the goal is to share stories of hope and generosity. And from the time you guys came to Newberg, you've been nothing but generous. You've been very involved, like at the Chamber of Commerce meetings, there's almost always someone there representing. You guys are very intentional about learning about the organizations here that you can support and trying to find ways to help. And I think it sets a really good example for other banking institutions. And I think it's been a couple years ago, First Federal here in town, I did an interview with them. They have a similar philosophy. Mm-hmm. And I think it's great that financial institutions have a heart. I think that's the way it should be to invest in the community. And I was really happy to see that when I saw you guys move in. So can you share a little bit about the philosophy that you guys have? Why is it so important for you to invest in the communities that you're in? And maybe tag along with that, what does it mean that you're not for profit? And maybe what's the difference between not for profit or nonprofit? Sometimes people may mix those up. And
it is confusing. I've been in this industry for about 30 plus years. And the reason that I love it so much is that credit unions are kind of a different breed. That not-for-profit categorization means that we're not a nonprofit. We're not a for-charity business. We run like a business, but we're kind of this nice hybrid between a for-profit business and a nonprofit. And what I mean by that is that credit unions are structured as not-for-profit. It means we're tax exempt. It means that we don't have an owner or a group of shareholders that we're trying to make as rich as possible, which is generally the model of a bank, right? We are run democratically, so if you belong to a credit union, you and every other member of that credit union are equal opportunity owners. Whether you take the opportunity to vote or not, you do have the opportunity to elect your board of directors, and that's how credit unions are run. And we came out of really the Great Depression at a time when banks were failing and credit was difficult to come by. Every credit union you've ever seen on every street corner was formed by some small group of very frustrated people who couldn't get the services they needed from a bank or, just weren't being treated right. And so, our whole mission, our whole reason for being is to do good things in the community, to improve people's lives. We at Embold particularly, we really embrace that mission, and we like to take a more holistic approach to that. It's not just about what your rate is or what fee you're paying on this, that, or the other thing. We really are serious about financial literacy and teaching people how to manage their finances. And beyond that, it's just so intermingled with all the other causes and good things that we could be doing out there. If you are hungry and can't afford food, it's difficult to talk about financial management, right? When you're hungry. If you're a foster kid, we do a lot of work with foster kids. Probably the last thing on your mind is what it's going to be like to be an adult, have to manage your own money. But those things are all intertwined and intermingled. And so we just really want to be a force for good all the way around, holistically.
It's one of those interesting things in any business. A lot of times there can be this idea that large businesses are out to just, make a profit off the back of the hardworking people. And it's sure those examples do exist, but when you think about it, a business, the very existence of a business is really the backbone of a whole economy, of a whole community. Sure. And I think when the perspective, like you said, is not just thinking, okay, how can we, get as many customers as we can to make us as much money? It's, well, how can we elevate the entire, level of prosperity of a community? And that starts from the very bottom when, like you mentioned, someone in foster care who, it's really hard to think about the future when you're in that situation or if you have nothing. And it kind of goes back to just a philosophical standpoint. And I know when you, maybe you could share a little bit about your background, how you came to Embold, and maybe you kind of re-emphasized a focus that was there of having the organization and the people actually get involved. So can you share about that, like how you came to Embold and or maybe Clackamas Federal at the time?
It was at the time, yeah. It was a convoluted path for me, and I won't dwell on all of that, but I started out as an IT person. Early in my career, I just fortunately got a job at a credit union, and I didn't really understand credit unions at all. And I jokingly, but not really jokingly, talk about how long it took me to really understand it and for the light bulb to go off. And I'll tell you a little story. I tell this story to most of the new staff that started in Embold. It's my light bulb moment. And I'm embarrassed to say it took probably 10 years working in credit unions to have this moment and to realize, this is what the big deal is. This is what's so great about credit unions. Keep in mind, I was the IT guy, right? So I'm heads down. I'm playing with all the technology, and I'm having a great time. But so I'm working at a credit union. This is in Kansas City, and a friend of mine named Mary and I were asked to go work at a trade show. And so this credit union was this particular credit union served law enforcement officers So it was a law enforcement trade show, which if you've ever been to one of those, there's a lot of very interesting stuff, and we were not one of those. There's Kevlar and the assault vehicles, and the ammo guy's got a booth, and, there we are with our little ink pens and talking about checking accounts and stuff. And so we are standing there talking, and this older gentleman kind of made a beeline over for my friend Mary. Mary was a mortgage loan manager at the time. And he came right over to her and said, "Mary," he goes, "you probably don't remember me, but I will never forget you for the rest of my life." And I thought, wow, that's interesting. This is going to be a good story. And he starts to talk about how, he said, 10 years ago, my wife and I were at the end of our ropes. We were broke. We were in debt way more than we could afford. My wife had a gambling problem. We were about to lose the house. All of these things were caving in on us, and we called lots of places, tried to get help from a lot of different organizations. Nothing really helped, and somebody finally suggested, "Well, your mortgage is at the credit union. You should at least go down and talk to them." And so we did, and they set us down in an office with you, and you spent probably 2.5 or 3 hours with us, and we worked through all of the debt that we had, and you helped us figure out some consolidation things, and you helped us formulate a plan for the house. And he said you even called around, this is so long ago, this is before we did 100 bets off. He said you even called around and found some gambling addiction help places and suggested them to my wife. And she took you up on that. She called one of those places. She got help. She got that under control. We were able to save the house. Things really took a turn for the better after having that one conversation with you. And he said, "I just wanted you to know that." He goes, "My wife passed away about 3 or 4 months ago, but I just wanted you to know that the last 10 years of her life were so much better because of you." And I thought, wow, that's pretty powerful stuff. It's still not the moment, though, because he walked away, and I looked at her with kind of newfound respect, and I said, "That's just amazing. You must remember that like it was yesterday." And she said, "No, I really don't remember them." And I'm like, "How could you not remember that? It's so cool." And she said, "Well, you have to understand, I've had that same conversation 100 times with different members." That was a moment for me that I realized, okay, this is really powerful stuff. We are impacting people. We are improving people's lives. We are making a real difference. And that was kind of the moment where I decided, okay, credit unions are it for me. I'm never doing anything else. And I eventually transitioned out of IT and got more on the people side. And that vision, that mission that many of us in credit unions have and that we serve every day it's the thing for me. It's what gets me out of bed. And I think it's what drives a lot, if not most of our team as well.
So, which is a powerful story, and I have several thoughts. So how did you end up from that situation to where you are now? I know you don't have to get into all the details, to now where you're leading the Embold organization.
Yeah, well, I eventually worked my way up to CEO at that credit union in Kansas City, and I was there for a long time, 15 years. I started my career out here in Oregon, though, and always wanted to get back to Oregon. That was always the hope. And so about 7 years ago, the opportunity here at then Clackamas Federal came up, and I took a shot at that and got hired.
Yeah.
So I've been here since the very first part of 2018 doing this work. And this credit union has been, police credit union was great too, but you're limited to, the certain limited field of membership. You can't really market. We didn't even really do community work with nonprofits and other partners that weren't police related. Embold's great, right? We have an open slate here. We can partner with anybody that we want to, and we've got all kinds of amazing partners all over the Clackamas County and a lot in Yamhill now that we're partnering with to move the needle for people, make a difference.
When you took over, what are some of the changes you made? And I mentioned before we started, Mandy or Amanda, who's the manager here in Newberg, she was telling me that you really kind of re-emphasize the idea of getting involved as a community, like that employees themselves should be involved and really be invested. Can you share what changes you made and why that you felt those were important.
Yeah, I guess I would characterize it as just rededicating ourselves to the mission. The mission was already there. I didn't invent that, but, taking a fresh look at it and recommitting to really serving that mission every day. And every credit union is a little different, but I see it as, the work that we do in the community that's not strictly speaking a financial product or a financial service. I see that as all intertwined and intermingled. It's a continuum of service and impact that you can have in the community. So that may have been a little bit different perspective than we had before. Like I said, these things are so intertwined. You can't separate hunger from financial success. You can't separate, being a foster child or an orphan. You can't separate being underserved because you don't speak the language or because you have some disability that disallows you from getting to a branch or talking to people or whatever it may be. So trying to, serve all of those communities of people and really span that whole spectrum is just all icing on the cake to me. It's all part of the same stew, so to speak. Must be hungry. I've got a lot of food in it.
Can you give some examples of some things you do at the credit union? Like specific ways you get involved in the community?
Me personally, or just
you as an organization? Yeah.
As an organization, we have a lot of great partners. As I mentioned, Project 48 is a group that we started working with a couple of years ago. They serve the foster kids they really started out as foster kids go into foster care because a lot of them show up with just the clothes on their back and they have nothing. And so they started putting care packages together and things like that. And we helped with that. And after we started partnering with them, they also started looking at the other end of the spectrum where kids are transitioning out of foster care. And that's the part where I feel like we provide a lot more value because we're able to come in and help teach kids how to manage their finances. We've done like mock interviews. Our HR team has gone in and done resume training and things like that to try to prepare them, right, for the adult world as they step out of the system. That's one example. We've done a lot of work with intellectual and developmental disability community. We've partnered with Special Olympics and Exceed Enterprises, Albertina Kerr, another large swath of people that get pretty overlooked, I think, in the financial services world. They have needs like everybody else, and they're not really considered a lot of times. So we've done a lot of work to help folks with things like rep payee accounts to manage their Social Security benefits, ABLE accounts through the state. We've done some hiring through some of those agencies. So a really big focus on that. What else? Clackamas Service Center and Canby Center are a couple of organizations we work with that do a lot of work with folks that are food insecure, homeless folks. And again, it's all part of the same problem that we're trying to solve, right?
Yeah.
As you said, I think earlier, lifting that financial success for everyone.
And that really fits into the culture of Newberg, like I mentioned earlier. And the whole reason I came up with the podcast name, The Giving Town, was because it is, that's kind of the culture and identity. Mm-hmm. And sure, there's always negative stuff you can look at, but my philosophy is always focus on the good, do what you can to help. You're not going to be able to change the world in a day, but, we can all work together and do that. I know your focus is often over the entire organization. Are you familiar much with the different partnerships that you've made in the Newberg area?
Yes. Again, we haven't been here too long, so we're still working on some of those partnerships. But student populations has been a huge focus for us. We've partnered with a lot of different school systems throughout the field of membership to help younger folks learn, how to write a check. It's amazing. People don't know these things anymore. How to budget, how to balance things. So we work with a lot of school districts. We have a great partnership with Linfield. We're working with George Fox University out here as well. I think we've started working with Virginia Garcia out here as well, doing financial literacy with folks that they serve. Who else? Unidos we've been working with. You got to put me on the spot. there's a few others I know that we've started working with.
Well, I know there's names, and I also forgot what they were.
Yeah.
What do you guys look for when you're looking for a partner in a community? What are the kind of things that you're like, hey, does it come down to like, hey, this is our core focus, we're looking for people within that, or there's certain qualifications?
We really look for folks that are organizations that serve folks that are underserved in some way. So the Hispanic community, folks that struggle with the language barrier and getting financial services is a big one for us. I mentioned intellectual disabilities. Really anything that gets in the way of somebody receiving financial services so they can help themselves, succeed and get a leg up in life. So Virginia Garcia is a great example of that. There's a lot of them, but that's the first thing we look for. We've worked with a lot of folks that do a lot of different things, so I won't say we're not too picky, but as I said, we're really just trying to have a holistic impact in the community. So that can look like a lot of different things.
Yeah. And I'll go back kind of to a broad question, and you answered this a little bit already, just in describing why you do what you do, but why do you think it's important for financial institutions and businesses in general to be involved and invested in the communities and volunteerism and generosity and those kind of things?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, from a purely commercial perspective, I think spreading that kind of goodwill and having that kind of positive impact in the community just comes back to you, multifold, just generally, just from a business perspective. As I said, credit unions are, I think, lucky. One of the reasons I love working for them is that it's really baked into our mission, and we don't have to satisfy shareholders. We don't have a shareholder meeting where we have to show a certain amount of profit in order to keep our jobs, that sort of thing. Baked into what we do is having that impact in the community. So for us, it's just part of our DNA. It's just how we operate. It's what we do.
Yeah. So for businesses in general, it sounds like what you're saying. One, it just makes business sense because things just kind of come back. And then two, it's, you kind of mentioned you do have an advantage as a credit union. But maybe for people who, if they do have shareholders or they do, they do have to make a profit, there's still ways that they can be involved and help. What would you say on that side of things?
I'm a believer in it. I think it does come back to you. It can be difficult to prove that though in a boardroom. It's hard to draw a straight line sometimes to that impact. But if you think about a lot of the great, really embedded companies in small communities, particularly, they didn't get to where they are by just, rooking everybody over and, raking in as much profit as they can. People care about that stuff, right? They care about the fact that you're contributing to the community, you're doing good things, and that you're on their side, so to speak. Yeah.
And I had a question here and maybe a clarification so that I don't, butcher it as I describe it. You guys have a specific product too, and there's certain ways that your business is structured that does help people who are underserved. And I don't necessarily want this to be like a commercial for Embold, but I think it shows that core value of trying to help people. And that what I'm talking to specifically is there's a product you have for people who are looking to rent an apartment. And as we all know, being in real estate myself, that there's a critical housing shortage, and that has both to do with purchasing homes and renting. And a lot of times people struggle to get everything they need together to be able to afford a home. Maybe they got a new job that pays well, but they just don't have the savings. And a lot of times they quickly find themselves without options. And you guys have a product specifically for those people. Can you share about that?
Yeah. So what you're referring to is, we call it the REAL loan, which is an acronym that stands for Rental Entry Assistance Loan. And the purpose behind that, and our lending team did a great job coming up with this idea. it's expensive to move into an apartment, right? It's first month, last month, sometimes there's a deposit. And a lot of people just can't swing that barrier to get into the apartment in the first place, even if they could afford the rent after they're there. And so this product it's basically an unsecured loan. We're not collateralizing it with your car or anything like that. It's very low interest. Don't quote me, but it's single digit. It's very low interest for an unsecured loan. And the deal with it is that we pay the proceeds directly to your landlord. And so it goes to them. They get you into the apartment. And then you have, I think a typical term is 3 years. You have 3 years to gradually pay that off at a low rate of interest to help folks get into apartments. So that's, I think, unique to us. I think we invented that. So we're real proud of that. And again, I'm not trying to be a commercial either, but we do a lot of things like that. We do a lot of I-10 lending, which is folks that don't have a social security number. So immigrants on their legal pathway to citizenship can get mortgages through us as well. So there's a lot of different ways we can help get folks into homes.
Yeah, speaking of getting people into homes, and you mentioned the story of Mary. Well, I guess there are many stories of her sitting down and talking to someone. One of the other cool things that you guys do is for the people who maybe they're not quite ready to have a financial advisor, maybe they don't have anything to invest and maybe don't think they will for a long time. But at the same time, I run into people all the time who I know that they could afford a home, but they really struggle creating a budget. They struggle to, take a really broad look at things and say, okay, where's my money going? Why am I struggling to save, just even a few percent of my income per month? And it's not really my place as a real estate agent to sit down with people and say like, okay, let's look at all your finances. And there's definitely times I want to, but it doesn't, it's not really my role. And I work with lenders to do some of that. Yeah. But even then with the financing side, it's even still like, okay, well, the job becomes to look at your financial picture and say, what can you do? Right. And maybe give a few suggestions. But one of the things I learned about you guys is that you have financial coaches, that it's not even about, they're not getting just paid on, like if you get a loan with us, we get a commission. That's how we get paid. But for people who are struggling and they're maybe a few years out, can you tell me a little bit about how that works?
Yeah. So we are on a path to have really every branch staff person at Embold be certified as I had to be careful with the word. It's not financial planner. It's basically a personal finance expert. And so there's a program that we send them through, and we're getting pretty close to the point where just about every branch has at least some, and most branches are pretty close to having everybody in the branch certified to do that. So it's exactly like you're talking about. If you are struggling at the end of the month and you can't figure out, why you're running out of money before you're running out of bills, that sort of thing, they can sit down with you and walk through that. Just like my story with Mary, exactly like that. Maybe there's a consolidation situation that would help you. Maybe you're paying way too much interest on something, and we can look at that with you. They have a lot of tools that they can use to help sit down and do that. So yeah, that's super passionate about that. We love doing that. It's like give a person a fish or teach them how to fish example, right? It can help you with a loan, but I'd much rather help you figure out how to manage your finances going forward for the rest of your life.
Yeah. I imagine that would be a very rewarding thing. And that's very close to my heart too, of being a coach and helping people do take the right steps, go on the right path. But, you have so much time in the day. And I think it's great that you guys just have that as a resource with the employees. Like you're essentially paying people to more or less for free, right? Talk to people. Yeah. And now what are the qualifications? I imagine you have to be a member of the credit union, right? At Embold. Yeah.
You have to be, in order to get a product and open an account or a loan, you have to be eligible to belong to the credit union. So for Embold, that's anybody who lives, works, worships, or goes to school in 6 counties: Multnomah, Marion, Yamhill, Washington, Clackamas, and Polk. So those 6 counties. But I mean, you can come in and sit down with us, and we're not going to throw you out the door because you're not a member yet. We'd like you to be, but we also do a lot of financial literacy training throughout the year. We do those. We do workshops in our own facility. We do them online. We do them in businesses. We do them at schools, and anybody can come to those. You don't have to be a member to come. We do one called Adulting 101, which is great if you've got 17, 18, 19-year-olds. We do a mortgage one. We do a car buying one. We do budgeting. We have several that we do a cybersecurity one coming up soon. So all that's free. You don't have to be a member. Just come and learn and do what you want to do.
Yeah, I recently partnered with you guys. Actually, did one on how to save to buy a home.
Yeah.
And work with Mauricio and Mandy on that. And it's it just makes me happy that there's other organizations who have that teaching heart, who want to help people. And again, it's not about making a profit, but at a certain point, as I think an organization and an individual, like once you get to the point where you have enough, you recognize there's really not a whole lot of joy or peace or whatever fulfillment that comes from making more money. At a certain point, it becomes, at least I think it either does or should become, okay, how can I actually make a difference? Mm-hmm. I'm now okay. I'm not facing maybe some of the struggles that other people are. How can I, and it's so different than, it's not just writing a check and, someone doesn't have money and, you're just kind of the giving a fish example. Mm-hmm. But as you begin to really teach people and help them have those light bulb moments of, wait, maybe I don't have to live this way forever. And then they can take the steps to work themselves out.
Yeah. You mentioned Mandy's name a couple of times, and I just want to do a quick shout out to her. She's our branch manager here in Newberg. She's been amazing. We hired her when we opened the branch, and if you don't mind, I'll tell you another quick story that involves her. This is one of my favorite stories that I've heard over the last year or two. She was telling me, 6 months ago, about an individual who was houseless, and she kept encountering him kind of sleeping on the sidewalk in front of the branch in the morning. And she was always kind to him. She'd give him a coffee and, tell him you're welcome to hang around. But when we open, I need you to not be in the doorway and stuff. And so she kind of developed a relationship a little bit talking to him. And so he was telling her that, I'm kind of living out of a shelter, and I have some money coming. I had a settlement from an accident that I was in, but it's not here yet. And I've been to every bank in the area, and nobody will open an account for me because I don't have an address. And so she sat down with them, and using the address of the shelter, they were able to, and she said, it took a little doing, but we were able to get an account open for him. And not long after that, surely enough, he got a large check from an insurance company for this settlement. He was being truthful about that. And he brought the money in, and it's his account, and he's using that money to get back on his feet, to get in the home, and really turning his life around. And that came out of just being kind and giving somebody a coffee in the morning when they're sleeping on the sidewalk, Yeah. I just thought that was amazing.
Mandy does have a huge heart. I haven't met anyone so far who doesn't at Embold. Yeah. But it's, I think people sometimes have this idea, that actually by and large is incorrect for most of the institutions in Newberg, but people have this idea that, a branch manager of a bank or credit union is just going to be kind of this stuffy, straight-laced person. But when you get to know Mandy, she's so sweet and kind, and she just has that heart to really help. It's just really easy to talk to. And I can say the same for most of the people, or at least everyone I've met at Embold. And again, it's beginning to sound more like a commercial. But I think it's important for people to know, the reason for this interview, for this podcast, is it's another example of a business that is coming into our community that I really think fits into the culture. And I like highlighting those things because people can sometimes have the impression that people are greedy or just out to, this new bank coming in, they're just blah, 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 blah. People say things, they don't know what they're talking about. But being able to give a picture into, no, this actually is someone who isn't just doing lip service. They're really serious about making our community better. And Man, I know there's multiple banks, there's multiple credit unions. A lot of them are amazing. So this is in no way, bashing. I mean, kind of an example. I have for a long time, and I'm not really proud to say I still have accounts at Bank of America, but they decided they wanted nothing to do with the Embold County, and they just left. And I don't want to necessarily slam them, but it's just, there's a juxtaposition of someone who wants to come and invest in a community and someone who says it doesn't pencil out and too bad if you have accounts with us, we're not here anymore. It's, so it's a different way of doing things, a different philosophy. And I appreciate it. I think it's worth, highlighting. And the question I'd have for you is, you expanded to Newberg. What are your goals around being in Newberg? What do you hope to accomplish by being in Newberg?
Well, I mean, it's a new market for us, and really we just want to get established, and we want people to know that we're here and that, as you said, that we're doing good things in the community and for people individually. And we just want to grow that book of business. And, our mission statement in Embold is improving lives, 2 words, that's it. And so we just want to improve as many lives as we can. And it's a new opportunity for us, a new place we haven't been before, and we want to do as much of that as we can in Newberg.
And I know you don't spend a ton of your time in Newberg, but have you gotten to know it at all? Have you been here much to get to see?
A little bit. It's we have a branch in McMinnville that's new as well. And so it's an hour from headquarters. So I try to get down there as much as I can. But you mentioned Mauricio too. He's our business development individual who's working out here a lot. And every time I come out here, practically everywhere I go, people say, you must know Mauricio. I'm like, yes. And I'm impressed that you do as well. So he does amazing work out in the community. And he is constantly out there, meeting new people and forming those relationships and trying to find places that we can partner up and do great things.
Yeah. Well, the reason I ask is the one question I like to ask everyone at the end of the podcast is, what gives you hope for the future of Newberg?
What gives me hope for the future? I think that I'll try not to be, I don't want to make it political, but I think when you kind of roll politics and economics together, I think we're in kind of people don't really think of the economy as being strong right now, but it is pretty strong right now by the math. And I think we have an amazing opportunity to kind of land the plane softly from some of the inflation problems that we've had. I think we probably will see some interest rates coming down a little bit later in the year. So I think we're really poised in a pretty good spot for people to do as well as you might expect financially, economically. Newberg's no exception to that. I know there's a lot of great things going out here. The wine industry is taking off. There's just so much to be excited about, I think. And we're really happy to be out here and be a part of that and hopefully contribute for the better. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you'll continue contributing because that's part of who you guys are. It's great to have you here. I appreciate you sharing a bit about yourself and also Embold as a whole, and look forward to seeing how you guys continue to partner with and invest in the community.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Giving Town podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with a friend who you think might benefit from hearing it. While more and more people are continuing to hear about this podcast, I still need your help to spread the message about all the people and organizations that make Newberg so great. Well, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next episode.